Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month if you bypass the Apple upcharge. How do you do that? Find the link right here in the description. Click on it. Go all the way to the end. Make sure that you pay. Otherwise, you're not getting access to the channels. But if you do pay, you'll get access to 10 channels and the stage shows, and you can cancel at any time. This is the place where you get the most heat conversation, and the most heat information. Also, check out great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network, Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down $5. You'll get $50 to play right away. That's prizepicks.com, legal in the state of Florida. And we're having a contest for the Super Bowl. So if you use our code 5 at Prize Picks, and you use the code 5 at Big Picks Energy, okay, which is basically the service that we use, that we team up with to give you the best plays, and you win the most of anybody who sends us a card for Sunday's Super Bowl or big game, whatever it is they call it, we're going to give you an additional $59 for Super Bowl 59 in Prize Picks promo funds. So big promotion, running it through this week. The key thing is make sure you subscribe to Prize Picks using the code 5 and Big Picks Energy using the code 5. And now, today's episode.
Down to Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust.
You sound scared.
It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. We're talking trade deadline. The Heat do not play again tonight. They are back in action on their road trip Tuesday and Wednesday. Was it Chicago, Philadelphia? Is that the order? Yeah.
Sounds right.
Chicago, Phil. Nobody cares about the games right now. It's kind of sad. Chicago, Philadelphia, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then in Brooklyn to end this trip on Friday. Then they come back to play Boston next Monday. Now, in between is the trade deadline, 3 o'clock on Thursday. We've already seen two seismic moves. You know, one of the reasons the trade deadline is kind of diminished these days is because the trades tend to come 3 or 4 or 5 days before. So you've already had one of the most ridiculous trades in NBA history. And the more details that come out about it, the more ridiculous it gets. Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic. They do get Anthony Davis and a first round pick. But if you start going through the backstory of how Nico Harrison, I wouldn't say crafted this trade. That would be too positive a term. How he was duped by his buddy Rob Pelinka, who used to work with at Nike and other places. It's amazing. And honestly, the Fox trade makes a little more sense for all parties. And he wanted to go back to San Antonio. He wanted to go to San Antonio. His wife's from San Antonio. And the Kings get 3 first-round picks, although it may not end up being 3 first-round picks. And they also get Zach LaVine, who, if you like the player, then you're okay with the contract, and particularly in Sacramento where it's hard to get free agents. I can understand their thinking there as part of that 3-team trade. With Fox going to San Antonio, but San Antonio didn't have to give up Castle, which was supposed to be the key piece in it. But again, that trade is not ridiculous. Like, that's an NBA trade that we can evaluate. The Luka Doncic trade is going to be studied for generations, I believe. And it's just amazing. It's like with the Lakers, how do they keep getting away with this? But of course, the one guy who has not been traded yet is Jimmy Butler. So we're going to update on the latest stuff that's out there. Some things have gone quiet over the past 24 hours, which is usually a sign that things are moving. But the primary thing that came out was we've been reporting, and I know that people around him have been challenging this report. We're not the only ones who've reported it. I have 2 media friends who are pretty plugged in Golden State with the Warriors who have heard the same and know the parties involved. And also, I guess Kevin O'Connor reported the same thing. that the Golden State Stars were not sold on adding Jimmy Butler. Okay, particularly the one big star. And since then, after I don't know, his team, I guess publicly was kind of challenging that report. Then it came out. There's another report that Jimmy don't want to go there anyway because he won't sign an extension with them.
Mm-hmm.
Which again,
which ended all
now
talks.
Right, and now we've heard what Memphis. Who are the others? I'm sorry, Milwaukee was said that wasn't really real or something. But Memphis came out. Wasn't there one more that he didn't want to go to? So it's anywhere but Miami, but those places, I guess, or anywhere but Miami, as long as it's Phoenix. It feels like that's it. that's what it is. Okay, so and you have his friend, and we know that's what it is because his friend is still on social media railing about how the Heat should just send him where he wants to go. And I guess he's still unaware of the mechanics of the Bradley Beal contract, which is that Bradley Beal can basically deny this and and also even if he wants to go to a certain place, Bradley Beal's open certain place. Most places don't want to take Bradley Beal because of the size and length of his contract. But anyway, so that's where that is. Now I can tell you, and we're going to talk about Kevin Durant a little bit more today, because another report just came out right before we started this podcast, and more probably will come out while we're podcasting because that seems to be the trend these days. I have heard, and this is from a couple of different people now, that Philadelphia is lurking in this situation, and that Paul George is a player who could be available. Now, I don't know at this point if he's been specifically offered to the Heat. I know that Golden State has been in on Paul George in the past. I know Golden State is still looking to add players at this time. And I mean, there are a couple different ways that this could go before we get into KD. One is, I'll just ask you this question flat out. Do you think that Jimmy Butler would decline or make it clear that he does not want to go back to Philadelphia, a place where there was an issue before? That's how Miami got him in the first place, was they couldn't agree to the length of an extension. There were all kinds of different reports that came out upon his departure. Now, Elton Brand's not running the show there anymore. The owner, Josh Harris, is still there. The coach is not the same. It's Nick Nurse. It's not Brett Brown, who Jimmy famously feuded with. Surprise, surprise. Do you think that he would go? Let's just put it this way. Do you think that'd be someplace he'd be willing to go? Again, provided they were going to extend him, which I would assume they would, because they were willing to pay Paul George into his later years.
That's where I'm going. Like, this is a lot less to do about basketball fit or location for Jimmy. Come on, we know what this is about. And for me, it looks like Joel Embiid's putting some pressure on Philadelphia to maybe go get Jimmy, right? He's been pretty vocal that he wishes that Jimmy would have stuck around, right? So if Joel Embiid is putting that kind of pressure and he's the franchise guy there, now there's a whole other conversation about can he remain the franchise guy? Because the way he's sitting out, it's unbelievable. And I don't know that they can continue thinking that they can build great teams with him playing so little and making so much money. But that's a conversation for another day. The fact that Embiid would want Jimmy tells me that the Sixers, if they are still attached to Embiid, and, you know, with Luka getting moved, who the hell knows who anyone is attached to anymore? But if they are attached to Joel Embiid, they would be inclined to pay Jimmy Butler. So, Ethan, the short answer is yes, they would pay the extension. And by virtue of the fact that they'd be willing to extend him at the number that he wants, he would go there. Because I think he'd go anywhere if he knew for a fact that they would extend him at that full max number that he was seeking from Miami or seeking from Phoenix. I think if he got that assurance from any team, they could send him there. It's just a matter of that. I don't think there's a lot of people willing to pay Jimmy Butler that. And that's probably a realization that him and his camp are having to come to as well.
Well, but they I assume would be willing to pay him because they were willing to pay PG. And
it's pretty similar. Yeah.
It's similar, and Jimmy was really good in Philadelphia during his time there. I mean, you can argue he was the best player in the postseason for them that year that they lost on the Kawhi bounce around shot. He was very well liked in Philadelphia too. So, and he kind of fits that city. It's not the craziest thing. I know they've inquired about him before, so it's. And I know I'm getting goodwill. Well, that's the next part of this, and then we'll get to KD, which I know is what everyone wants to talk about. So the next part of this is you don't have to take Paul George. What is Paul George's number? What is he at right now? The problem with Paul George, first thing, he's not playing very well this year. I mean, that's first thing. Okay, he's been a better podcaster than player.
Yeah,
But aren't there 4 years left on the deal?
Yeah, so he is at $49.2 million with 4 years left on that deal. So it's obviously going to only increase from there all the way up to
And he's 30. Is he
56.5 million.
35? He's 35, Greg. Right, same age as Jimmy.
Yes, that sounds correct. Although 34, excuse me, 34.
Okay, basically same age as Jimmy. Okay, so not as much of a problem as Jimmy, but also has not been in recent years quite the same playoff performer that Jimmy has been. Paul had his moments, obviously, against the Heat and the Big Three teams. He definitely had his moments, but it's been kind of choppy. A long time ago, right? And he and Kawhi never really became what they could become. And Paul was kind of what's part of what may go down as the second worst trade in NBA history behind the Luka trade, which Rudy Gobert's up there too, although at least Minnesota made progress, which was trading Paul George for SGA, Jalen Williams, and 1 million picks. So for 2 current All-Stars, including one guy who's going to finish in the top 3 in MVP voting. But here's what I would say about Paul George. If you're the Heat, would you prefer, rather than take on Paul George's money, to get involved in a deal like that, where, say, Jimmy goes to Philadelphia, Paul George goes to Golden State, a team that has flirted with him in previous years, okay, and you end up getting parts and pieces from Philadelphia, Golden State, and we've talked about some of Golden State's pieces. Potentially a Toronto gets involved if maybe Wiggins is involved in the deal, and say Miami doesn't want the extra year with Wiggins, which is what, $30 million, that Wiggins ends up in Toronto, and maybe you take Bruce Brown back, who we've talked about, who's an expiring. It just feels to me like there's possibilities there. And this Phoenix thing, the second part of this episode is going to be about the other guy at Phoenix, where, but this Phoenix thing, as far as Jimmy going there and Bradley Beal going somewhere else, it's like we're just banging our heads against the wall. Like, this is every day there's another report from this Evan DeSitter. Is that the new Evan Massey? I'm not sure. About how the Heat aren't interested in Bradley Beal. We told you that 2 months ago, okay? Yeah. We've been telling you that every single day. It's a day that ends in Y. They don't want Bradley Beal's contract. Give them 35 first-round picks. They might consider it. No team has that, okay? So this is not happening, and he doesn't even seem to want to go anywhere. All the reports are his family is happy there, even if they're getting harassed in the crowd. He just wants to stay in Phoenix. So
if he waived his no trade clause, there could maybe be a conversation, but the fact that that's in place and he's not willing to move off of it is huge. And when you mention the PG deal, before we talk about KD, because that's, with the reports, that's probably what we should talk about to close this out. The other thing with the Paul George scenario where he goes to Golden State and you get expirings, there's also a chance you could dip out of the luxury tax potentially, and you could reset that clock. There's some things you could do there that are also obviously not the funnest thing on the court, but all have value in different ways. So that's just something to watch. And it's interesting that we're now hearing about Philadelphia, because we've always thought that was that Joel Embiid wanted him there. And, and we've literally seen crazier things happen the last couple of days. So
well, it seems to me like the kind of trade, and again, I'm just spitballing here because that's where we're at. I mean, people talk about reports. The Heat are talking to everybody, okay? I mean, they're talking to everyone. They want to get this guy out of there. Like, this is not a question of stalling. Like, they want to get him out of there. The coaching staff doesn't want to look at him.
If they got all expirings from any team, they take it and run, I think. In my opinion.
They want to get him out of there, but they're not going to make a bad deal. They can make a neutral deal, but they're going to try not to make a bad deal that's going to hamstring them in the future. I just can see, again, spitballing, that kind of trade could make everybody happy. I mean, Golden State needs one more piece, a wing piece. Paul George has had moments in him. Okay, maybe he gets rejuvenated out there. He doesn't seem happy in Philadelphia. You look at Philly, they get more of a dog, right? Okay, in Jimmy than PG. Okay, with somebody who Embiid has a relationship with, obviously, as you've mentioned.
Try to save the Embiid era.
try to save the Embiid there. And Miami gets, again, there's pieces there. Now, whether they would take Wiggins with the extra year, or again, whether it's somebody maybe from Toronto with Bruce Brown, maybe they take the flyer on Kuminga. I don't think that's going to happen. I still don't really see Golden State even really doing that. But there are pieces we can talk about with those teams. I mean, Philadelphia has would you take Caleb back on a 2-year deal?
Yeah.
Now,
If you're talking about all the pieces are flying around and it's a big trade, why not? Because he's coming back at a lower number than you offered him.
Get back at half the cost than you wanted to pay him, right? I'm not advocating for that specifically. I'm just saying that there are. Hey, take Kyle back too. Why not? Let's just forget the whole. No, you don't want that. Bring the whole crew back
if
together.
Terry's going out.
If Terry, right. I'm just saying that there are options here with that. I still think Chicago, the Lonzo Ball thing to me is still sitting out there. Like if they're willing to take a couple of, I was fortunate the Heat don't have what they have two second round picks through 2031 because it feels like you could get Lonzo Ball for a couple seconds right now, and I feel like on an expiring, it's worth it to see what you have there. I know he's a player that Miami's liked before, but anyway. There seem to be options out there. It's just that none of the options are Phoenix, and yet that is. I wish it's not gonna happen. I just wish they'd be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what the Heat would prefer too. But I just be honest. We want to go to one place. We've always wanted to just go to one place. That's all this is about. They promised they would extend us. End of story. That's it. Not this. Let's wait till the Heat gets 75% of the way down the line to a potential trade, or at least there's whispers of that. Oh, he's not going to go there. Like, what are we doing? I mean, it just feels at this point like,
especially when you came out and
petty.
said via the biggest national newsbreakers out there, something to the degree of you'd go anywhere but Miami. Like that was initially the first report. So like to pivot back this other direction and play defense against other deals like Golden State or Memphis, it's just it's contradictory to the incentive to want to leave. It's just weird. I have no idea why he's operating in this space.
I mean, it is simply the contract extension because nobody has ever tried to get to Phoenix that much. Like we're talking about a place, right? Like they've signed some free agents over the years, mostly old guys who want to play golf. Like this is weird. Like people want to go to the Lakers. Like Luka didn't even have to petition for that. He literally was sent in what will go down as the worst trade in NBA history. Like he got to the Lakers. The endorsement deals that Luka's going to get if he just drops 10 pounds at this stage. Like, come on. Okay. I mean, it's a perfect situation for Luka. He becomes next for them. I get it. Guy wants to force his way to the Lakers. Understand? Who has tried to force their way to Phoenix? I just don't. It's just the owner. It's the owner and the fact that he's willing to pay stupid money for guys at the end of their careers. Speaking of which, we'll talk about it after this segment. Our friend, you know what? I'll do the read on this one. Why not, Greg? Cousins USA. You can find them at cousinsusa.com. Family owned and operated since 1996. They can service both residential and commercial moves, whether you're going across town, across the state, across the country, and even across the globe. They have a 15,000 square foot private warehouse in Lauderhill. That's in Broward County, not too far from me. Number one priority is transparency and being honest with their customers. They got a very low turnover, with most of their movers working for over 10 years. So check them out. It's at Cousins Moving. That's at Cousins Moving on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or visit the website at cousinsusa.com/5RSN. That's www.cousinsusa.com/5RSN. And here's the thing. You mention us, 5 on the floor, 5 reasons, 5 anything. You get 5 free wardrobe boxes with your next move, so you don't need to pack your clothes away in suitcases. So check them out. It's cousinsusa.com, sponsor of our Who's on the Move segment. So let's get to it. Right before we came on the air here,
convenient.
Chris Mannix, convenient. Chris Mannix, who is a credible reporter, he's been in a bunch of places, SI, etc. I think he's with Yahoo. Is he with Yahoo now? I believe he's also had a podcast for a long time.
He's one of the few that stayed at Sports Illustrated. He's a senior writer there, so he's basically like their primary writer.
Okay, he's reported that the Warriors are still pursuing, of all people, Kevin Durant. And he's also reporting something that I believe someone else reported today, that the Suns if they cannot get anywhere with their Jimmy Butler pursuit, may get in the trading Kevin Durant business now. That he may be, as our friends at Cousins Moving USA might say, on the move. What do you think here? This has been a decade-long obsession for
Yeah.
the Heat.
Let's quickly catalog it. They first
Yes.
meet him in the free agency pitch, and I think Spoelstra was, from what everybody said, it was a masterclass from Eric Spoelstra and how he would utilize him and get him the most efficient and easy buckets of his career, all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, how could you turn down what was the Golden State Warriors? But also, he was in Brooklyn. The Heat reached out there. It seems like, from what we understand, Ethan, correct me if I'm wrong, keep me honest, Brooklyn kind of asked for Bam, and the Heat were like, no, that's not the point of this. We would want Kevin Durant to play with Bam. And so that didn't go very far. He ultimately ended up in Phoenix. And now, if he's available, you put this on our off the floor feed, and I'm going to steal it to tee you up here. But the Heat have the chance to do the funniest thing possible.
We do.
If Phoenix really wants to remain competitive around Devin Booker, who they need to, and Bradley Beal because they're stuck with him, but Devin Booker because they need to continue to build around him. And if they're willing to extend Jimmy, I don't know if that's contingent upon being with Durant or not. That's the big question mark here. But Jimmy and Durant, I mean, like Durant makes, we were looking at this pre-show. I'm coming back to it now. He is at 51 million this year. So that's Jimmy plus another salary. The internet's going to ask, would you do Khalil Ware and Jimmy Butler to get KD? So I'll tee you up there. This is the big question now. Could the Heat flip the script and turn this into a gain that nobody thought they could realize from the Jimmy Butler situation? We've thought that it would end in the opposite direction. I do not want to hope traffic too much, but because these reports came out, it's worth asking the question, could you outbid, or would he be telegraphed to a place like Golden State?
Okay, so let's start with this. You mentioned the history of this, and yes, the Spoelstra meeting with Durant is like legendary. I mean, it's everybody who was in that meeting talks about it, as did people around KD. That Spo essentially sat down with him and said, "This is where I can get you your shots." Okay, now this was 2016, but he had helped, and LeBron has since acknowledged this. Took him some time. But he had helped LeBron become the most efficient version of himself. There's never been a more efficient LeBron James than 2012, 2013. That is where it all came together. Okay, we can argue whether 2016 and he had better runs, but that was the most efficient version of himself, and Spo had a lot to do with that. So essentially, he was talking to Durant saying, look, I can get you, this is where I can get you better looks and all the rest. And the belief is that if the Heat had more on hand at the time, that Durant might have bid on it. They felt like they finished as close a second as you could to Durant joining a generational team in Golden State that happened to have money because of this cap blip, because of the TV money came in and they didn't smooth it like they were supposed to. And so Golden State had this pocket of money, and Durant did the easiest thing possible, which was go join a championship type team. Now, Kevin doesn't get enough credit for the fact that he was the best player on the finals in a couple of those times. But again, he's never going to get the credit for that because he joined them instead of trying to continue to beat them. Now, so let's start there, because the Heat and Golden State have kind of been intertwined on this stuff before. You also mentioned that, the idea with Brooklyn, and it was closer than we reported at the time. And I know Levitard has had a lot on this, that it got closer. I know the Bam was part of the whole discussion here, but that it got closer. The thing about Durant, when we talk about whether or not you would give up your core young players, is we've been sitting here on this show saying, you know what, the Heat needed to pick a direction, and Jimmy kind of picked one for them, right? Like to go young, to build around these young guys and all that. But like there are certain people in life who to every question become the exception. And I just think for this organization, like
KD is that.
KD would be like a championship in himself. Like, I don't know. It just feels like they have been on this pursuit of him for so long. And then Spo coached him again in the Olympics, obviously as an assistant to Kerr. So again, the Golden State connection there. I don't see how they wouldn't get involved. Now, this is total hope trafficking to say that this would ever happen. This feels like a long shot. But to tie back to the beginning of this episode, I didn't think Luka Doncic was going to be traded before 2026 because some former Nike executive got an idea in his head that he was too fat. Okay, so like this at this point, like all bets are off. And I don't know. This Phoenix owner seems to me to be unpredictable. Like he's done some good things there, like lowering the price of hot dogs. But he's put together a team that doesn't really fit. Right? This is 3 coaches. Is he hired? He's hired 2. He hired Vogel and Bud. They seem to just be all over the place. I don't know. I mean,
they
I don't
traded
know
for Beal. Like that is a bad mark.
It was. It made no sense at the time. It was like, how is he going to fit with the 2 of them? They don't have a point guard. Now, they finally went out and got 2 point guards this year, Tyus Jones and Monte Morris. That hasn't worked out. I know Heat fans wanted Tyus Jones. Miami was interested in Tyus Jones, but
for sure.
He wanted to start. He wasn't going to have a chance to start with Miami at the time with the way they were set up.
Not with Drew Smith here.
That's true, right? Well, you don't want to compete with Drew Smith. Well, Drew Smith would be starting right now. We've talked about that. He would be absolutely starting right now if he hadn't gotten hurt. But I just covered this a couple of different ways. Like, how would Ishbia sell, the owner, and James Jones, who obviously with Heat ties, with general manager there, how would they sell to their fans swapping Durant for Jimmy? When Durant, I mean, we could argue whether Jimmy's been a better playoff player at times, but Durant is the better player historically. He doesn't seem to have slowed down in any way. And when he's healthy, he plays. I mean, I'll say that for him. Obviously, there's been a lot of injuries over time, but you don't get the sense that KD is just taking games off. I mean, I've never seen that. Not when he's played against the Heat, for sure. I just think it's a tough sell. But we had and now it escapes me, and I apologize for this because he was a great guest. But we had a Phoenix guest on with us about 3 weeks ago when this stuff was starting. And he said that the whole point of getting Jimmy was to get Kevin to extend.
Yeah, so that's what's weird to me about it. I feel like it would be a last-ditch effort, and Phoenix would have to be scrambling. And here's the other element of it, because you couldn't sell it to the fan base to answer your question for talk about selling fan bases. Like the Dallas Maverick fan base is just in shambles.
There is none anymore. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's just unbelievable. There's like a memorial out in front of the arena. Anyway, let me not get sidetracked here. With Durant, and now I've completely lost my train of thought. Like, I think Durant would have to say, okay, since this didn't work out and you getting Jimmy and Beal, and this is just not working, Phoenix is not winning, I want to go to Miami. And like, that would be the way that they'd have to justify that. And so you'd have to ask, is Kevin Durant going to signal, I want to go to Miami, over Golden State, over whoever else may bid? That's the big question. And what would you have to give up in order to match salaries with KD? Because they can't aggregate players, Ethan. Right. So it's not as easy as like, oh, well, they can put KD and Nurkic together and you could send them a bunch of guys. No, they can't do that. So you got to hit his 51. You
can't even take Ryan Dunn, who I know is a player that everybody's talked about. Like, they literally, while they're in the second apron, there's just very little flexibility there. And that's why I'm like, okay, well, is there a way to send Durant to Miami, send Jimmy somewhere else, and other pieces go to Phoenix? Would Phoenix even be interested in something like that? It doesn't feel like it. I'm looking at,
I don't know.
I'm looking at KD's numbers this year. Okay, well, let's get. I was trying to find this on this just for those who don't understand what kind of player he still is, because I think, I mean, again, watching the Olympics. And then the thing that got lost about all the Tatum stuff, okay, is that Kevin Durant was just still better than him. I mean, that was the thing. Like, as soon as KD was hurt at the beginning of it, and as soon as he came back, Tatum didn't play. Now, this is Tatum, who's been anointed as the best American player right now. Like, if you look at the MVP last year, he was the number one American-born player in MVP voting. Obviously, he was on a championship team, even though he wasn't the Finals MVP. But you're talking about Jason Tatum, and KD just came back and snatched all of his minutes.
Yep.
Like, this is not a player in serious decline in any way. This year, he's averaging 26.9. He started 38 games. I was looking at, he's shooting 52.5% from the field, 41% from three, 83% from the line. Like, he is still an elite offensive machine. This is not Carmelo Anthony towards the end. He is an elite offensive player. So I'll just ask you this, okay? Because again, I don't think this is going to happen, but we had to talk about it. We obviously did not have a topic today because things have been so scattershot over the last 24 hours. I wasn't sure how to organize it. Like, would you give up on the young build for it? Or piece of the young build? Like, would you say, okay, we're just going to go contend? Like, if Ware had to be included, okay, where's your line? Jovic? Yes, right?
So the issue with Ware being included is that's 53 million, and so that's too much. So then let me back this up a little bit here. Jaime Jaquez would be 52.4 million. So that also doesn't really work. See, this is where this gets weird. Nikola Jovic, 51.2. That's the guy. So it would be Nico and Butler if you had to match dollar for dollar. Now they could be third team scenarios and you could get other guys involved.
I mean, it also could be Josh or Alec Burks too, right? But I would think that Phoenix would insist on
something
Jovic,
for their troubles.
Right. Right.
Considering what they gave up to get Kevin Durant.
I know. Oh, if you look at that was the comparison that was made, and we put this on Off the Floor. We recommend everybody subscribe. If you look at what Brooklyn netted out of that trade, okay, and just all the tentacles of that, and how many pieces, and how much flexibility they have, and how many picks, and all the rest of this, compared to what Dallas just got for Luka, who is as great as KD is. Luka is almost 10 years younger than KD. And currently, again, when he's not eating, a top 5 player in the NBA, it's amazing. We wanted to talk about it. I will say this: I would do it. Yeah. In a heartbeat. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. I really don't. To me, I think you could extend KD. I think KD, the way he plays, his style of play. Like, we always talked about Bosch's style of play and how well he would have aged if he hadn't gotten the blood clots and all that sort of stuff. I think KD can be an elite player. Yeah, another 3-4 years at least. Okay, I really think so. I know he's had some injuries, but he's never been a bully ball type player, obviously. But he's strong enough to hold his own. And again, he's just the skill he has does not go away. He is the purest scorer I've seen up close, okay, just as a pure scorer, and he would make the Heat instantly relevant again. So I would. This is my one exception. What was that? Well, I don't want to get into that. That's going to get us into trouble. You get one hall pass per year, whatever. You don't.
No. Ending the episode.
Ending the episode. Cousins USA. Oh, that was Andre Kirilenko, right? AK-47. Look it up, okay? cousinsusa.com, prize picks. Use the code 5. Get in that now because we're going to be giving away the $59 in additional prize picks promo funds after Super Bowl Sunday. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.